We are Christian humanists, those who believe that Jesus Christ, God become man, is the ultimate measure of what it means to be human.
We believe that every human being is created in the image of God.
Whole persons who are at once fallen, yet gloriously endowed.
Finite and dependent, yet deserving of infinite dignity.
We seek to stay true to both the wonder and to the woundedness of life this side of the veil, even as our eschatology floods us with hope.
Jesus Christ walked with us, died, resurrected, ascended,
and he will come again to make all things new.
So the first one begins with the clause, "We are Christian humanists." The paragraph is thick, and it places front and center Jesus Christ as the one who is the measure of what being truly human means from a Christian point of view, and defines out of that then the significance of every human life, as you put it, gloriously endowed, finite and dependent, yet deserving of infinite dignity. Why did you start here?
I started here, I think, with a very specific historical location that I believe we are in, which is a wide-ranging and sometimes at odds with one another set of threats against and confusion about what it means to be human. So I think other ages will have other fights and have had other fights. But I do believe our age, and I need to get more articulate on how this includes our relationship to the earth. This is not at the expense of non-human, but alive aspects of this moment in time, and I think the threats we all feel. But it was an attempt to plant a flag, and if we're going to fight for something, we want to fight for a conversation about what it means to be human. Sometimes in all of the millions of ways in which people experience the church, experience sort of Christian witness in the public square, in the sort of culture wars, the politicking around that, I often feel like this human, like deeply human place that has a love for every human being out there and a recognition that we are created in the divine image, like that fundamental contribution of Christianity to world history gets lost. And so it was an attempt to ground the Comet Project, but also, as I said earlier, this is really meant to be language for a wide, eclectic array of doers and thinkers across civil society. It was an attempt to say, this is our starting point. Each human being is a soul with infinite value and worth, and we believe, we have sort of a quiet but confident conviction that there is something really special in Christ's own life, and of course the very fact of the incarnation, God becoming man, that continues to lend kind of unrivaled power to that belief, and it has huge implications for how we understand our lives here broadly as human beings, and I think it has more specific implications for how we understand, like, why Christ even came, and therefore what we as his followers are meant to be ushering in. So it was like fundamentally putting a pin in the timeline of history and saying we're somehow in a humanization versus dehumanization fight. And we think the Christian story from its very origins has something to say. And that piece of the Trinity as Christ is, yes, fully God, but also fully man, has something to say to this. And then was also an attempt to begin to try to flesh out a word that has become a little scary to, I think, especially the evangelical world, but I think anyone post-Enlightenment who is devout and wants to think of God as fully God. That word humanism has been kind of scary, and I wanted to risk it initially, but then say, we're not losing the fact of Christ's divinity here, but we want to try to expose all of you readers to kind of a much longer conversation that has been happening about what the incarnation really means for our world and how it has changed history, and we're still walking in that changed history.
You know, I think it's significant that if you took out this first article, as one would perhaps imagine about other manifestos. If you took out the first thing that is being said, the rest of it would just crumble. I mean, if the first principle of this manifesto isn't the core, then I don't think you would be able to justify the rest of the manifesto. They might be legitimate and important things to give yourself to, but if it's not true that there is such a God and that God has come in Jesus Christ and that revelation has accompanied the Christian church's understanding of what it means to be a human being in the world, both, as you say, in our strengths and glory and in our woundedness as well, then it would be a confusion, a scramble, a radical act of just desperation to try to find some other way of giving form and meaning to the things that you go on to talk about, whether it's institutions or whether it's the place of creativity or other things, all of which we might consider good. But without this first principle, it feels as though, from Comment's point of view, it would make the rest in certain ways impossible. Is that fair to say?
Thank you for seeing that. Yes, I love that you just said that, Mark. Yes. And it was an attempt to name, like, insofar as people are looking for new labels, and we're risking this. And there was a lot of debates internally. Christian humanism, that, like, how will that look on Google? Like, but it was an attempt. So many people we know and love and respect feel ecclesially homeless, obviously politically homeless otherwise. And it was an attempt to try for not something new, actually, but to maybe re-enliven and dust off a label that could perhaps be a new canopy for a whole host of folks caught between the ancient and the emerging.